Hey, Cami McBride here. And as you've noticed, I've opened up the conversation about plant communication, and wow, so much response. Thank you so much for jumping in. And the number one question, or what you've been contacting me about, is say, hey, Cami, tell us a story. Tell us what we can expect. Tell us about one of your experiences or what your students go through. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you a story about one of my students, Anna, who had a completely life-altering experience, and she was one of these people that, like, I'm not into this, this isn't for me, this doesn't work for me. And boy, when the door opened for her, whew, it was big. And I'm also going to tell you about one of my stories that really just took me by surprise. I thought it was kind of a simple question, and it unlodged like 40 years of grief, that I'd been holding on to. So that's good. That's good healing. So I have hundreds of stories of direct plant communication, um, communication coming directly from the plants that help people with relationships, transitions, health challenges, so many aspects of our lives that plant communication can support us with. And it's going untapped. And so the thing about the plants is that not everything they do has been written down, right? There are new illnesses, new viruses, sicknesses that we haven't dealt with before. And the plant communication really needs to be integral. It needs to be a vital part of our herbal studies to be integrated into what we're working with, so that we can stay relevant and really deal with what we're going to be facing, right? It's absolutely has to be part of the picture. And so the thing is that the earth is speaking, and it's time to listen to what the plants are telling us. If we're going to evolve our culture into one that honors the earth, we have to open the direct line. Okay, and so I really, really want you to get that we are wired, we are hardwired to perceive messages from nature. It's how our ancestors survived, right? Sometimes now when you say, oh, I got this, the plants told me, people just kind of roll their eyes and they think you're weird. But really, it was, a long time ago, it was really weird if you couldn't read the landscapes, right? And you didn't know how to communicate with nature. It meant that you weren't all there, and that your survival was questionable, right? So the thing is that in terms of human physiological evolution, it hasn't been that long since we stopped paying attention. And so the body memory is not that far away. But just because you may not have paid that much attention in this lifetime, I'm telling you, without a doubt, your ability to directly perceive what the earth is communicating, it's right there. It's right there. The earth, the plants, they have information and teaching for you, specifically for you right now, that could help you. And when I mean you, I mean you, I mean the people you love, I mean your community, I mean the world, your sphere, right? Whatever you want to help with. And so direct perception is a critical piece of our being able to move forward with the herbal medicines and really meet the demands of what is happening now. And so as I talk about these stories, see if you can think about the framework, right, that allowed these stories to come through, and where you are in your intrigue and your interests, and attraction to being one of those that listens. Are you one of the people that works with the herbs and plants and wants to step into saying yes, to listen, to directly to them? This is a calling. This is an invitation to go deeper with your herbal medicines, okay? And so the steps of the framework, just quickly, we're working on activating or awakening something that's already in you. Pick the word that works for you. You're awakening, reclaiming, remembering, revitalizing. So we put these actions to remove, the obstacles, and basically wake it up and bring it back to life and kind of revive it, if you will. And if you're already tapped into it, we go deeper, and we understand the actual language of the earth and how we engage, and how our physiology is completely hardwired for it. Just that, for the most of us, it wasn't cultivated. It was wide open when you were young, but it's like a seed, and if it isn't watered, it doesn't grow. And for humans and for our brain, our brain trims pathways off that aren't fed, right? So the body builds neurons, mitochondria pathways around events that are responded to. So like you say your ABCs, right? And it's like, yay, big Og, here's a cookie, right? But you sit out in the garden for hours with the butterfly, and nobody claps and squeals, right? When you're young, nobody notices your plant communication and your earth communication, so it just kind of shuts down for most of us. So you see, this isn't something we're pulling out of a hat. But the good news is that the seed is still there. The seeds are still there. Even if we haven't watered that plant communication seed, it's literally right there. Okay. And all we need is some light and some water and a little bit of nourishment, and it just sprouts right up. And even if you have this, like, I don't know if this is for me thing, and if that feels hard to shake, or if you're like, I don't know if this is for everybody, if you wonder, oh, I can't really do this, is it possible? Or maybe it's been happening for a while in your life, or it comes and goes and you can't solidify it and you can't get clarity. I've been doing this now for 30 years, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that the earth has a message just for you. So, the thing is, my students say that once they become aware of it again, it's like it just goes into place, right? I mean, have you ever had that where all of a sudden something just fits and you can't even remember when it wasn't there, right? Your relationship with the plants, it doesn't just start today. If you're here with me right now, you've had a relationship with the plants. I mean, you're probably making herbal medicines or maybe even harvesting. And what I'm telling you is that this is just a layer that you want, and just FYI, not everybody has plant relationships. I mean, are there people in your life that could care less? It's like they don't even see the flower that you're like, oh, pull over. Or they park right on the garden bed and they don't even notice. They're like, what? Not everybody is a plant person, right? But you are here. And I can tell you now that your relationship, however conscious you are of your communication, it has already started. And we just need a little more water or light or nourishment, and you will be able to access an entire world, an entire other level of just wisdom, earth directed wisdom to add to your herbal medicine. So we work on understanding the language, the physiology, how it's available to all of us. And then what we do is we kindle the memories of our heritage. Take note that you are the one in your family that's attracted to using herbs. Maybe there are other people in your family, but not everybody is. And you are the one. You are the one that's putting this back in place for your family and your family line for the health of future generations. Just take that in. It's you, okay? So what we do is we work on accessing the threads of our ancestral lineage. And again, it's not new. This is one, and once you make that ancestral connection, everything going forward becomes easier. Okay, so then what we do is we work on just activating the techniques and the habits that open the lines of communication. We put a few habits and intentions in place that step by step you become more receptive. And after a while, the communication becomes second nature, part of your day. It isn't something extra that, it's not something that you have to set aside extra time, right? It can happen while you're taking a walk or picking up the grandkids. I mean, I always keep a notebook in my car because it happens for me when I'm driving down the road. Or when I'm having a conversation with someone, I asked the plants a question 2 days ago, and I'm talking with someone, and it's like, oh my gosh, here comes the answer. Wait a minute, I gotta write it down, right? And it's not about how much time you have to do this. It can happen in an instant. And you don't have to sit down, you don't have to meditate. And so then that brings us to interpreting. How do we trust it? How do we recognize the truth with the confidence that that the plants are actually communicating with us? Wow, they are. And how do we put in protocols for interpretation so we can get clarity on our insight and interpret accurately, so oh, this is what truth feels like, right? And then we can reliably process it, and then trust and reliability, that piece is important, right? It's important. It's important to trust what you get and to know when you can trust it and to have protocols for safety, right? And then applying it, what needs to happen so the application is safe and responsible, okay? So that's just like a quick snapshot for you to insert yourself into, you understand what is it, what's blocking it, it. You access your heritage. How is this part of your family line and how can it support you now? And then you activate the habits, the techniques, the mindset that aren't that hard, that just open the door. The door opens. And then you move to interpretation and responsibly applying it to your life. And, the thing is, this isn't rocket science. It's not woo woo. It's just a dormant piece of being human. It's a basic part of our humanity. And so all the different steps on how I can guide you, those are entire modules in my course, Plant Wisdom. And my years of stories, experience, techniques to inspire and support you in awakening and deepening your personal relationship with the plants and with the earth, and how to awaken this innate ability to communicate and cultivate so that we feel confident and trusting in applying what we perceive. Okay, so again, but what I've been getting the most questions about is to tell a story. So what does it look like? What can I expect? So I've been doing this since the late 80s, and the stories, they take on a lot of forms. Sometimes they're sometimes they're just not anything what you expect, I'll tell you that. But sometimes it's something about a relationship or a decision you need to make, or a concept that you're working on, or how to take this herb for that, how much to take. Sometimes it's really literal like that, right? And so what we do is we work on, all the skepticism and the doubt that keeps you from knowing how to know what it is that the earth, when it's legit and when it's something that you made up in your mind, but there's a lot of different things that can come through. And so let me tell you about Anna. So Anna, many years ago, she came to class and she came to learn herbal medicine making. And I'm really good at herbal medicine making, and people come to me to learn how to make and use herbal oils. I'm known for that. And so, but the plant communication is always part of my classes. And so she's a botanist, she's a scientist, and she travels and she works in different ecosystems and surveys the plants, and she loves her work, right? And she works with the plants every day. And when we started doing the plant communication, she's like, that's not for me, but I really want to work with you. I want to learn the oils and the herbal kitchen remedies. So she's kind of put up with the plant communication part. But we did the framework, and she's just like, nothing's coming to me. This isn't for me. She would fall asleep. She wouldn't remember anything. She thought other people were making things up when they talked about what they experienced. But see, by that point, by the time she had come to class, I had like around, I think it was about 15 years of watching people go through the process. So I'm like, okay. And so finally, after her body and her being started realizing that she was tuning into this capacity, and basically what happens is the physiology gets joggled, right? It's like, oh, what? Oh, we're doing this? Oh, I remember this. And it's like you wake up, right? And so finally she had a memory. And it was her first, and it wasn't just a memory. It was like, wow. So she said, I remember being a little girl in my backyard, and I just had this feeling, I can't even describe it. I felt so connected. She said, I could feel the living presence of the trees and the grass, and I just remember loving everyone there, the plants, the grass, the place. I loved it so much. I felt so much love that I made a wish, I made a pact. And my wish is that we would always be friends and we would never part. Can you relate to that? So as a little girl, she made a wish to always be connected with her plant family, and that she felt and she loved, and she realized that she made a wish when she was a little girl, and her wish was to always be friends and to always be connected with the plants, right? Came straight from her heart. And here she is now, a master's degree in botany, a PhD in botany. She realized that her entire adult life, her career was directed by this purpose that went into place when she was under 5 years old, sitting with the grass and the trees in her backyard. This memory, it just like hooked up her life. And she wept. Oh my God. She wept in the recognition and the love and the profoundness of this purpose, of her life's purpose. And she realized her entire adult life was deeply rooted in a wish in a dream about the plants from her childhood. It was so powerful. Her work as an adult is completely related. She got into complete alignment with herself. She felt connected to all of herself. And that's just something like, oh yeah, I wanted to major in botany when I went to college. This was actually a lifelong continuum that began with a wish when she was a little girl and she felt love for the earth, right? And it gave her more energy and purpose, and it really was her. She felt so much more connected to her calling and to her life purpose. I mean, how many people lose purpose and lose track of meaning in their lives, right? This is so powerful. And so plant communication can trigger many ways of healing, right? It's not just like take this herb for that, but sometimes it can be that. And so this story brings me to tears when I feel the connectedness of it, the love in it. I don't know how. I never know what's going to unfold, and I don't know what's going to happen for you, and it's different for everybody. But what this story teaches us is how the capacity and how the earth communication, the plant communication, it's so important because it's so present time. It's so like, this is what's happening now. You can read about life purpose and do exercises around life purpose, but wow, to just like go straight back to the moment in your childhood when you set up the trajectory for your entire life. I mean, that's incredible. And so wherever you're at in your communication process, like I've said before, I've seen people from all walks of life go, nope, this isn't for me. But you know what? It always pops. It always eventually pops. Sometimes it's conceptual, sometimes it's concrete, sometimes it's like technique oriented. Um, but you don't have to have a special gift. You don't have to be able to have special focus. All you got to do is find your door, and it's not that hard. So, for the first 10 years of doing this, I was all about finding the keys, like what opens the door for people. I was really into tracking people, listening, following what what the plants were telling me to do. And people had amazing results. So I had this ring of keys. Like I've got these keys that are amazing that I've developed for the first 10 years of doing this. Because I was like, what are the keys? How are we going to, what's the way in, right? And so I did. I really came up with this ring of keys that are amazing, and anybody can use them, and I give them to you in the Plant Wisdom online course. But the second decade of working and teaching plant communication, I was all about how can people find their own key? How can you find your own key? What's your own personalized key? And so then things went to an entirely different level, right? People started having much deeper experiences. And so now I'm entering my third decade of teaching this. And that's why I am so like, when people say, I don't know, I'm not sure, I don't know if it's for me, is it for everybody? I feel it sometimes, but I'm not sure. How do I know? Is it reliable? And is it, I just have this confidence of like, yep, I know, but we'll get there. And so it reminds me of my grandmother. My grandmother was a swimming teacher. She taught hundreds and hundreds of kids how to swim. And I hung out with her. I loved her. And she just, the kids would be like, ah, and she just held the confidence like, yeah, in 6 weeks, it'll be a whole different scene, right? And so I run into people today. They're like, oh my God, your grandma taught me how to swim, so I love that. But um, I'm like her. I'm the swimming teacher. When I hear, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I have that special spiritual gift. It only happens once in a while. I don't know what it means. Do I have the discipline? How am I going to ever balance this out with my life's other demands? Is it time consuming? Like all these things. I just go, yeah, I got these keys, and we'll spend a little bit of time, and I watch the doors open to places that we don't even know exist. So I'm like the swimming teacher, like, yeah, it'll happen. I don't know what made me think of that. When I love remembering stories about my grandparents, I guess. So, okay, so I want to tell you a story of a plant communication that happened for me that was nothing like anything I could have ever expected. So one of the things that we do when we learn plant communication is we learn how to ask. We learn which questions to ask, when to ask, how to ask. And so there's a lot of different ways to do that. And one of the questions that I ask is on a, it's not the only thing that I do, but I'll often say, what's the next step for me on my in my healing process? And so, yeah. So I asked this question, and there's a lot of different techniques. We learn how to ask, and then there's a lot of techniques that open the door. And so I worked with that question for a while, and then what happened is I saw a beautiful English walnut tree, just a beautiful, large, I don't know if you've ever seen a full-grown English walnut tree, but they have beautiful canopies. Their trunks are really smooth and gray and take on all these different forms. And I could see the leaves blowing in the breeze and the sunlight and just this magnificent English walnut, right? And yeah, it was so beautiful. And so one of the things I want, just take a break here. I don't always see things in pictures. You don't have to see things in pictures. Answers come in many ways, and that's one of the things we do is we help kind of unblock this tendency to want to compare ourselves, which is usually a showstopper for people. So don't compare yourself, but just FYI, you don't have to see pictures. So, but this particular time, I saw a picture. And there were no words, about how I should heal myself. There was no dissertation, you should do this. There's nothing like that. I just felt the presence of this English walnut tree. And it was beautiful and it was peaceful. And I was like, oh, wow, that's nice. That's beautiful. I want, and then I wonder what that was, and then my brain kicks in. It's like, oh, walnuts, walnuts are really good for the brain, the oil. Maybe I need more essential fatty acids, or walnut hulls are used in a digestive formula. Maybe I need to work on my gut, blah, 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 blah. So that's the other thing that we work on is how to discern what is the actual message for you, what it is you're supposed to be interpreting, and then what's the mind chatter, right? So we get really clear on how to do that. So I was clearly moved by the beauty and the majesty of this walnut tree. And actually, I can see and feel it right now, but I didn't know what the message was, right? And so I just didn't think about it anymore, and I let it go. And then over the next few days, the memories started coming. And they came one after the other, and they kept coming, right? Just while I was going about my day, while I was driving down the road, doing my dishes. Oh my God. And I started to remember why that walnut tree came to me. And of course, from the time I was born, walnuts were a thing, right? We lived in an area that was the world's largest exporter of walnuts and almonds. We lived on a creek, and across the creek was a giant English walnut orchard, right? I don't even know, there were hundreds of walnut trees, and that orchard went on and on and on. And then there were 3 huge walnut trees in our backyard. And so walnuts were a thing, right? They were a seasonal routine that were part of my life. Every year, my brother and I, we had to pick all the walnuts. We had to bag the walnuts. We had to sort the walnuts. There were grocery bags of walnuts in our garage. There were Ziploc bags of halved walnuts in our freezer, right? It was the same thing at my grandparents' house. Walnuts were part of our lives. There was a lot of agriculture in our area, and my dad would trade the walnuts for other vegetables and fruits. And my grandparents lived right around the corner from us. And if any time between October and December you stopped by, which it was I lived around them at a time when people still stopped by, but the kitchen was covered with newspaper and a big metal bucket of all the uncracked walnuts, and then a bowl for all the shelled ones, and with several nutcrackers. So anybody that stopped by could just like pick it up, right? And so we would crack walnuts in the kitchen, we'd crack walnuts in the living room by the fire, and I know a lot about cracking walnuts. I know how to crack them with my hands only, how to crack them so that the halves don't get crushed at all, so that they're perfect when they're cracked. I spent a lot of time with this rhythm of processing and eating this food. And so the area we lived in was big walnut agriculture. And so my grandparents, my great-grandparents had walnut rituals embedded in their lives even before I was born. My great-grandmother made walnut candy. She was alive till I was 14. I remember the cookies, the cakes, the breads, the candy, walnuts. We had a seasonal earth-based ritual that was bedded in the culture and the cuisine of my household. Walnut trees and food were part of my heritage. And then the orchard was cut down. They built a huge housing tract there, and we moved. And the neighborhood we moved to had one walnut tree. And then a couple years after we moved there, it was cut down for an apartment complex for all the thousands of people that were moving into our town every year. And so, my grandfather still gleaned. He found other trees to glean for a while, but after a while, he lost it too. He stopped. And so there was no more gleaning, there was no more gathering, there was no more trading and sharing and cooking. And I was sad. Nobody ever really said anything. We just didn't acknowledge the passing of this major earth, this generational, earth inspired, tree inspired generational family ritual. They were just cut down and houses were built, and that's it. And so I can just still remember my grandmother's candy. I started to just remember all these memories, and I was so sad. And I wasn't just a little sad, I was really sad. Sad for the loss, but also the fact that we never acknowledged, the loss of all those trees, the loss of those rituals, the loss of those foods, our relationship with this incredible, abundant harvest. It's like we always had something to give. The power of this offering. I mean, there's no way we could eat all those walnuts, but we always had something to give that was from our heart and our hands. And so the sadness just kept coming, layers of sadness. And then it reminded me of even more things that I was sad about. Reminded me of all the gatherings and the cooking and the big extended family that I was raised with, and my grandparents and great grandparents and cousins. And then, several years ago, my husband and I, my son, we moved, and since then, both of my parents have died. And so just underneath that walnut story was this other story of how sad I was that I didn't have this big extended family anymore, and that I wasn't raising my son in extended, and it was just like this. I wasn't raising him in an extended family, and the grief that unraveled out of my body, it took like 3 months, right? Because that's what happens with grief. Grief stacks like that, and grief gets stuck and crusty and old, and then the grief just stacks. And grief creates numbness, and it puts a block in our energy, and it puts a hold on our energy and our vitality and our quality of life. And so yeah, I got to do a big old fat healing, and whew. But I realized that where I live now, that there's a walnut tree in my backyard that I just never even really said hello to, right? The walnuts don't do very well here where we are, but I've been picking the leaves, I've been keeping them in my room, and just remembering this walnut medicine, right? The walnut medicine taught me about abundance, and the feeling I have about cracking walnuts with my grandfather in the living room by the fire in the winter. Oh my gosh. I can feel that memory right now. It's in my heart right now, right? So you never know. You never know what form the healing is going to take. And, for me, releasing old grief is big medicine, and you never know how it's going to show up, right? So, yeah. So, when we don't have this piece of direct communication and connection as part of our herbal studies, what I find is that I hear people talk about, it's like they have an insatiable desire to learn more, like they need more information, they need to know more. And what I find is when this piece of communication, this communicating, connecting directly, or making contact like this, when that goes in place, we feel more settled, more relaxed, and we feel like we don't have to know it all. We just have to connect deeply, right? And so there's a satisfaction that comes, and so for me, that was so powerful. And these are just a few, of hundreds of stories. And again, sometimes the teaching is not what you expect. It can be healing your grief. It can be healing and integrating your whole life's purpose, right? So, Anna, she now she feels she's living her life with all of her instead of part of her, and this profound level of energy and empowerment and dedication and renewal of her life's purpose. I mean, that's profound. And so the thing is that most of us, if you're here, we have these we had plant communications when we were young, but they weren't validated. And so sometimes you saw something, but when you looked around, your parents or the adults didn't see it, so you stopped seeing it. And they didn't hold the link for you. They didn't bridge it for you. Or maybe they even said they laughed at you or called it child's play, you know. But what happened is that it wasn't modeled or bridged, and so we started gravitating toward whatever it is that people said were real, right? So I do I feel so passionate about this. I have people tell me all the time that they have difficulty remembering what they learned about an herb. When you have a deeper connection like this, it creates a sticking point, right? The communication helps you remember everything, and it helps you personalize it. It helps give you more embodiment to your plant studies, so that everything we can, can just start to grow, things that can grow on top of each other, and the threads become stronger and thicker, and you can actually start to weave them together. And the more your nervous system feels your intention and your habit of doing this, the more it starts to relax, and your herbal studies just feels more connected instead of like this chaotic, instead of chaotically like piecing together this remedy, this book, this monograph, this contraindication. You know how the recipes and the monographs just stack up and they pile up, and then you finally get to reading the monograph, and you're like, well, what does that mean for me and my family, right? But what I help you do is we put in a mindset that will always be with you, right? Whether you're walking to your car or sitting in your backyard, deep connection with the earth and with the plants is always available to you. So I'm here. I'm here to stir the pot on your planet communication journey, on this kind of dormant piece of humanity, our humanity that needs to be woken up. And you're already gathering your herbal knowledge, and we're going to access your inner capacities to cultivate personalized, earth-directed wisdom that you can apply to how you work with the herbs and your herbal medicine. So step by step, your receptive capacity can open, and it's like a personal treasure toolbox, and it's just buried a little, but it's not buried that deep, right? So the interest in herbs and herbal medicine right now, it's skyrocketing. It's a 5 billion plus dollar industry in the United States. There are hundreds of thousands of people onboarding into the herbal world. People have had it with the epidemic of medication side effect sicknesses. But if this direct communication piece is not part of the massive increase in consumption of herbal medicine, if this piece does not go into place on a big scale, we're going to just have more of the same. Overharvesting, chemical agricultural growing, non-fair trade, child slave labor of growing the herbs, and more endangered plant medicines, corporate marketing driving the herbal medicine conversation. I mean, we're already seeing it, right? And we have to connect deeply and learn to do this herbal medicine thing so that we do it in a way that we're not part of the problem. I mean, people are interested in herbs. For me, how I see it is that this is an incredible opportunity for relationship. People are trying to get back to some integrated knowledge about food, plants, right, and the earth. And we have this lineage. There is an upwelling of trying to remember. So there's an opportunity here for us to become more integrated in relationship with ourselves and with the earth. And there's a choice. We are at a juncture in how we continue with our herbal studies and our plant knowledge. We can approach it like we do a lot of things. Like an example is like we can approach it like commercial ocean fishing. We can throw out the net and pull in everything in our path, and we think we know it all, and we need to have it all. And I'm not saying that you personally, but if you look at what's happening in the United States right now with herbal medicine, it's yeah, it's dangerous. We could really wipe out ecosystems trying to fuel our need for the plants that people are wanting. And or we could approach it like a small fisherman who's got this one-on-one relationship with fish, right? And it's that one-on-one relationship with your herbs that you're connected with that fills such a big space. And it's where you find the herbal medicine that is actually and authentically your herbal medicine. That's what this is about. It's, yeah, sure, the books, the teachers, the classes, everything is all incredible. But we need to have the direct communication access part of it. Okay, we don't inherit the earth. We borrow it from our children. We know we should be walking more softly on this earth, but how do we learn to do that? We know we should be living more sustainably, which means we live our lives in a way that and meet our needs in a way that future generations can meet their needs. How do we do that? I wasn't raised with that. The earth is speaking. The plants are speaking. They are teaching very powerful teachings that are needed on the planet right now. And I'm so grateful to be doing this, to work to awaken and nurture this healing that's needed to restore our relationship to the green world. You are here. I think it's amazing that we're here focused on the very powerful healing that's needed on the planet right now. And so my intention is to support you and all of us. We're reactivating a lineage, and it's not that far away, right? It's myself also. It's a major life journey for me, right? Inspiring a culture that honors the earth, that listens to the earth, that listens to what she says. We're working to create a culture where Mother Earth is honored and revered. And as you know, we're really on the brink of what's happening as far as species extinction, climate catastrophe, and it's really going to take all of us. I'm passionate about how can we get as many people as possible communicating and partnering with the earth as quickly as possible that are supposed to be. We only dance on this earth for a short while. We don't own the land that we live on. We're stewarding it for the next generation, for the people that come next. It is our job to listen to the plants, to take care of them, and to let the plants teach us how to do it. And it's just a matter of practice and willingness. The earth is talking. Not everyone's listening, but if you're here, I have a feeling that you're one of the earth keepers, right? That you're ready to listen to the directives of the earth, and the earth is speaking. There's a simple little bridge to cross, and you can add this dimension to your herbal remedy making or not. But if you are despaired by the destruction of the planet and want a way to have your herbal studies contribute to the solutions, we have to bring the earth's perspective to the table. So I could go on and on, but I hope that you found resonance in these stories, and I just want you to know that Plant Wisdom, Activate Your Plant Communication Skills online course. It opens in a few days, or maybe depending on whenever you're seeing this video, maybe it's enrollment's already open and maybe about ready to close. But we don't leave enrollment ongoing because we like to close enrollment and then be able to focus our intention on everyone in class. So if you hear the plants calling, I want to feel more grounded, embodied, assured, satisfied in your herbal studies. If you're ready to hear the messages that only you can hear, only you will be able to translate them in a way that makes sense to your people. The earth is speaking, and you're already working with the herbs. I hope you feel inspired to be one of the ones to bring through the so needed messages right now. So, okay, I think I better stop here. Let me know your thoughts, where you're at with your plant communication, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon.